Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I like this theme that this episode really had, the whole situation of, like, someone being missing and whether or not someone is looking for them or not. I thought that was such interesting. I like, especially how they, obviously this combines like so many themes, because obviously you have Jacob putting out a reward about, hey, can anyone help me find, my daughter Kate? I believe she's being held by someone. I need someone to give me any information they can. But also having people throw out, oh, is this going to be like kind of like a leads nowhere like the Beth situation, which is like, I think that's so shitty that they would throw that in his face, because granted, the world doesn't know that obviously Beth is Alice. But also at the same time, once again, we had that disagreement between Luke and Mary. Luke is like, no, there's Kate's still out there, but like, but it's like for Mary, it's like, where's the source coming from? It's Alice and this crazy lady Sophia. Like, neither source is being one we can trust. It is just simply a situation you can tell Mary's like, I just don't want to get my hopes up, It's like, but I think for Luke, it's like, the fact is, he's like, I can't get my hopes up because I never lost hope. And that's the thing that, like, for him, he's like, I think for Luke is like, how is it that I can keep going yet you just kind of give up? At the same time, Ryan ends up taking down someone that's working with the false face gang, the one behind the snake venom. We actually, snake bite. We even got more explanation as kind of what it is. It seems like it's basically a combination of an upper and a downer, because basically it hits you with the fantasy and then it hits you with the fear, which is like, but it's like, yeah, because it gets you on both like adrenaline rush sides of like kind of bliss and terror, which is like, that's interesting. I'm wondering, like, well, the way they hinted it to it last episode, because you were like, oh, some dude in a black mask. So I'm like, okay, so it is Black Mask. I mean, I don't know if he's typically always associated with just like being like a crime dude. Like, I mean, most people in Gotham are a crime dude, so I have to take that back. But I don't know, like, where his villainy level goes. Is he more like the street level type? I mean, I guess the argument is even Joker's street level a villain when you actually break it down. Which is interesting to think of Batman, one of the greatest villains in history is, I mean, more often than not, obviously there's comics I'm aware of that do take him to, like, other heights, because sometimes he will get powers in certain cases. Whatever the case may be, it's actually interesting to think the Joker is probably the most popular villain in comic books, and he's a street level villain to a certain extent. I don't know, like he is still classified as a super villain, but a lot of his stuff is like street villain level stuff when you actually think about it. I don't know, I never thought about that until now. So I guess that's why I was just kind of like, well, I guess that, especially in Gotham, like everyone's kind of a street level villain. I guess there's street level villains and then there's street level super villains. I guess that's just, I mean, once again, Gotham's on a whole other level than any other city in the DC universe. At least Gotham's just the kind of the big no-no city in the DC universe. But regardless, tangents and all aside, it seemed like, because I immediately took it last episode, it's like, oh, you're referring to Black Mask, but it's like, once again, all the stuff he was mixed up in Birds of Prey makes it going to feel like, yeah, that still kind of correlates in some regards. So, but regardless, she was trying to find out who's behind this, but actually kind of stumbled upon another case, because this little boy was like, I couldn't get to bat signal, so like I needed to get your attention some other way. My brother went missing a couple months ago, and I need you to help me find him because no one else is looking. And this is a very personal story for Ryan, because she knows what it's like. She talked about obviously being in a foster care system, in particular this particular side of town where she's like, I think she even says it's called like Waste Side, like, so it's got that type of name, but it's like, this particular foster home. Interestingly enough, she met a girl that like, oh, they hit it off, they became friends. It's like, you got my back, I got yours. I love the twist when we find out it was Angelique. I was like, yo, you and your ex go that far back? So that probably makes, this is going to be a super complicated relationship then, if they've got that deep of ties. But I think maybe that's a little bit, it's different, but maybe that's what they're kind of setting up. The Angelique and Ryan thing is very similar to how the complicated relationship Kate and Alice have. Like, maybe it's supposed to be kind of a similar parallel. But it's like, because all Ryan will say is like, yeah, things got complicated. Because remember, Victor last episode was like, wait, you're Angelique's ex? Oh, I just don't do to me what you did to her. It's like, what the hell went down between these two? I guess it's a situation where when the time came, she kind of, well, because Ryan had said like the drugs she got busted with were Angelique. So I guess it was the thing of like, she kept away from that side of things. Like I said, whether or not she was aware of Angelique's more criminal sides, I brought that up before. We'll have to wait and see. But I think it was just like, Angelique's probably always stayed on the more wrong side of stuff, and Ryan tries to be on the better side of things, but it's just, I think it's probably like Angelique's probably always been kind of a bad influence on her or something, but it's like, considering what they went through, it's like Angelique's always had my back, so she's always been kind of ride or die, so it's like, all I can do is like, she's always been there for me, like, because even before she met, her mom, Cora, who took her in, who she refers to as her mom, probably before that, the only person she had consistently in her life, maybe since then, was Angelique. So maybe that plays a role. But we'll get to that in a second. It turns out, like, obviously, when she was younger, she got kidnapped by this lady. They refer to her as the Candy Lady. Because of Teen Titans, I don't even know. I meant to look it up. There's that lady from Teen Titans who's kind of like a granny. I think her character's name is Mother May-I from, like, I don't know if she's a character from the comics. I assume, but I don't know. And like I said, I don't even know if Mother May-I is actually her name. But anytime I see someone of that nature, I'm like, oh, could she be? I don't know. Like I said, I'm most likely reading too much and thinking too much about it. But like the Candy Lady or whatever, like being like, oh, I have these comics. Oh, well, if you don't want them, I'll just bring them. No, that's fine. And I was like, oh, boy. And, sadly, Ryan got taken. And she's like, oh, no one's actually looking for you. Here are these jelly beans. I'm going to take one every day. And after 60 days, you'll realize, like, because she's trying to break Ryan, make her feel like, oh, no one's coming for you. You're in this alone. There's no one that's looking for you. No one cares about you. And especially for Ryan, Ryan takes it that's why, like, looking for Kevin this episode for her is so important to her, because it's like she was in a situation where no one came looking for her. No, it's especially because she was a part of the foster system. It's like, oh, she's just a runaway. And for her, it's like, it's the thing of, I was black. No one, because statistically, it's like, who's going to get, a lot more attention on, oh, this kid's going missing. Some white kid, so, and especially for Ryan, it's like, this is another black kid who's just going to go missing, who falls in between the cracks. No one's going to really go above and beyond to look for him. Like, so Ryan took it because, making up for trying to be there for some kid when someone wasn't there for her. Well, in actuality, Angelique was, because Angelique got herself captured. When everyone else was like, oh, she left. But Angelique's like, nah, there's no way she's going to leave without her Ghost Kid comics, because she knows how important they were to Ryan, which also I think that plays into Ryan's character a little bit more too, like realizing like why she's so probably like why being a superhero probably means a lot to her, like because all she had in her growing up were those comic books of like they were only probably like thing and she couldn't really count on people, so it's like probably wanting a hero. But even like the Candy Lady was like, oh yeah, but the heroes in those comics really save people like you. So that was kind of a little disheartening. And I think to be able to be that hero for someone else, I think means a lot to Ryan, as someone who kind of grew up not really having any heroes that she feels like represent her or would come to save her, so I just think that's such an interesting development for her, like kind of giving her backstory and just kind of folding that into her character. And the fact is, I thought it was kind of nice that who she opens up with to about this is Mary, because Mary's staying at Kate's place because it's like it's like holding on to all this other stuff of Kate. And it's like, oh, like, she's like, I understand, like, if I lost a sister, I do whatever I can to hold on to every bit of her, and that's kind of what Mary did, which is interesting considering Mary wants to make it seem like she thinks Kate's not alive, but that isn't trying to take away from the fact that she cares. It's like her sister's missing, potentially dead. Like, of course she doesn't want to give herself hope to believe, like, because I think for her, it's like she wouldn't be able to survive if it's like, you have all this hope and then just to find out Kate's dead. I think that would, it'd break her. Like, their dad can't go through that again. He already went through that with Beth. He can't do it again with Kate. So that's why even more so, it's like, I gave up on Beth. Look what happened. She became Alice. I'm not going to give up on Kate, especially now because there's so much unsaid, which ends up being a whole thing with Alice and Sophie. But I'll go ahead and finish my thought, because it's like there's so much left unsaid, because he has to apologize because now he knows, wait, you were Batwoman. I turned people against you. I turned my own gun against you. I didn't know. Like, I want to be able to apologize, get that opportunity. So, but Ryan tried to get in touch with her ex, Angelique, because Ryan was kind of drugged at the time, so she didn't know where the Candy Lady's place was. But Angelique couldn't get in touch with Angelique. But the whole reason why this got started is because, and I thought it was such an interesting detail, like when it's like, those people came to the Candy Lady's place all those years ago looking for someone, and then they're like, and then they were mentioning a little girl that was missing. I was like, oh yeah, but then they mentioned a red stone. I was like, wait, it can't be. Yeah, the person they were searching for, it was like that was during that period of time Beth was missing, and obviously it's a situation where Kate had made sure to collect everything. And I think Ryan and like Kate could actually, they would probably hit it off in certain regards because, for Ryan, it's like hearing about Kate, like Kate kept looking for her sister, never gave up hope, even when the police, the search parties, even their own dad gave up, and it's like, it also reminded her of Angelique, in that regard. But regardless, because of that, they were able to kind of pin down a potential location, and Ryan wanted to confront her as herself, because it's like, I think it meant more to her to handle this as a me situation rather than a Batwoman situation, because it isn't a Batwoman issue, which it technically is, but it's more so a Ryan thing of like, this is her confronting her past, confronting this lady who didn't recognize her. But Ryan beat her up. It's so interesting. I wonder, is that going to be something we kind of learn about Ryan? Like, because like Ryan can kind of easily lose her cool. Because obviously the way she beat the shit out of Tommy when he was dressed as Bruce, literally punched him so hard the face came off. But also like just the way she was going. I mean, this is also very personal to her as well. So, like I think when it comes to personal history, I think that's what can make Ryan's blood kind of boil over in certain regards, especially under the circumstances, realizing like what happened to her as well as what she's continued to do in all these years later to other kids. Because she makes kids feel like, she breaks them by making them feel like no one's going to come for you, no one cares about you, making them feel alone. And it's interesting how this ties into the False Face group, because it turns out, because the whole thing is the lady basically kidnaps kids and traffics them, but also like sells them to gangs. Like she sold Kevin to the False Face gang, and it's like, oh, you want a family? We'll be your family. And they ended up capturing Jacob because they wanted to give him because I guess it's because he's like, oh, he's all up in their business. So like they used this whole Kate situation. I'm like, oh, we got information to draw him out, and even asking Kevin to kill him. But luckily, Ryan shows up as Batwoman, and together they were able to kick some ass. But she was able to kind of talk Kevin down by being like, I understand, like, you're not alone. You have a brother who's out there, and it's like, if you pull this trigger, you'll kind of be what they told you are. And it's like, you're not that. You're not invisible. I see you, And even Jacob being like, how'd you find us? She was like, I actually looked. Because, no one had looked before. And even Jacob being like, at the end, like, yeah, if it wasn't for Batwoman, I don't think I'd be here, which is going to be interesting. I think his stance on Batwoman is going to change in many different regards, because one, finding out your own daughter's Batwoman and finding out what happened, it's probably going to soften your stance at least a little bit on Vigilante. So I think going forward, he's going to probably try and have a better relationship with this Batwoman, especially if it helps finding Kate later on, which there's probably going to be circumstances that lead like, hey, I need your help finding my daughter. She was the previous Batwoman, so, and it's like, I'm sure, I think that will kind of be like a little bit of a olive branch type of situation we might see. It'll be interesting. Especially the last time he kind of got like, the media kind of tore him apart for like the video of him shooting at Batwoman, so like what Batwoman means to the city. So obviously I think that also plays another role in it. So regardless if this isn't Kate or not, this is someone else under the cowl. But I think for him it's like, well, we'll see whether or not in the long run it does have that lasting effect or not, and what that means, for that potential dynamic. What's also interesting is we are continuing to bring up the whole, oh yeah, she's still got that kryptonite bullet wound. She's not thinking much of it because she's like, oh, it's kryptonite. Like, I guess they never said anything about like, oh, they knew like, oh, it's supposed to penetrate and kill you, but it's like apparently it didn't. Maybe because the suit was able to kind of slow it down enough so it didn't fully penetrate. So, I think it is like, it looked like it was like, I think a through and through though, but maybe it decelerated enough. I don't know. Like, it'd definitely be enough to kill a Kryptonian, but it can pierce the suit, but not. I don't know whether it was always intended to be the long, slow. I guess it's unbridled territory. Like unknown territory for a lot of people, and like how the bullet was going to work. They're just like, oh, you're still alive. It's like, yeah, but it's like we do see like the veins of like, yeah, it's spreading. I think for her, she's just like, oh, this is weird. I mean, because I don't think she doesn't know like what they know of, like, oh, kryptonite, this special thing which is literally made from a planet that blew up. The one thing in the universe, well, I'm about to say, other than magic, that can cripple a Kryptonian, because can't always forget that snafu. Like Superman and Supergirl are weak to magic, but regardless. So that's, you know, she's still, because I think she doesn't think too much of it. It's just kind of like, I don't have time to worry about it. But I also do like that, like, she's moved in with Mary, and I'm like, that's pretty dope. Like, that they're immediately kind of hitting it off. Like, obviously her and, you know, Luke had a bit of a rough patch, but they're kind of working things out. But I like the whole Mary and her situation. I also like what it means for Mary, because for Mary, you know, she realizes, like, Kate never gave up, and it's like, you know, how can I, you know, be in that same boat, like, be under the same circumstances as Kate? Kate would never give up in these circumstances, so why am I, you know, I can't give up so easily either, you know? So I think for her, she's going to, like, you know, try to believe a little more, like, keep up faith that, you know, because she doesn't want to believe that Kate's dead. She can't bring herself to believe that, so it's like, I'm going to believe that she's still out there, and we're going to find her. So I think that was kind of a nice development in Mary's storyline as well, you know? So, but also like her and like I said, her and Ryan being roomies, that's definitely going to be interesting. It's like, yeah, you go get a roomie, you know. Another avenue to this episode is the whole Alice and Sophie situation, where Alice is like, hey, I'm here in your place, so let's find Kate, because it's like, yeah, we finally find out what the promise was that she made Sophia, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna find someone named Ocean, and it's like, okay. So you kind of figured as much. It had to be, I guess it never really crossed my mind. I was like, it had to be someone that screwed Sophia over for her to be like, oh, I want you to help me hunt down this person. I wonder, is it that she herself could never find them, or is it just being like, well, I could track them down, but you being from Gotham, it'd actually be a lot easier for you to kind of move about and do this stealthily. Plus, you owe me a favor, so two birds, one stone type of thing. But reluctantly, Sophie has to work with her. Luke gets dragged into it. And we also found out, like, oh, Alice is meant to kill him. What I also thought was fascinating is, oh, it's with a particular knife. I'm like, what the hell is that about? Maybe it's like kind of a custom of, like, it needs to be by this blade's hand, or maybe like a blade from that island that kills. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Like, why specific? Or maybe there's more to the people on that island. Once again, like, Ra's al Ghul had, like, the whole Lazarus Pit, which I don't know if that's changed because of the continuity. Because remember, there was that whole other Lazarus Pit that, like, was being shut down, like, near the end of Arrow. There are others out there being shut down, so, you know, because, like, Nyssa and Thea and Roy were kind of working on that. I think they successfully did all that, if I remember the end of the season, potentially, the series. I think they were able to make that happen, if I'm not mistaken. But it's like, we don't know if that's something that's changed post-Crisis. You think just because of the way Ollie kind of made things play out, that would have been something he made sure to probably keep. Like, yeah, no more Lazarus Pits. But I was wondering, like, the reason why I'm bringing it up, because I'm wondering, is like Ocean kind of like special in that regard, or like maybe there's something on that island that keeps people alive or young or whatever, and maybe like that knife is meant to like kill them because it's like, oh, you're something special, so you have to be killed with a special weapon. Or maybe it's kind of like hey, this weapon devours your soul, and like, I don't know. It looks like a normal blade. I don't know. Maybe it's just meant to be a sign or something. I don't know. Like say, oh, if Ocean's killed with this knife, bring it back, and we need the I don't know. It feels like something ritualistic, but so now it's a situation of Luke and Sophie keeping the information from her because it's like, well, we can't trust Alice. They go to Ocean's place, but it's empty. But they do find Venom there, so Ocean is connected. Or at least, quote, they ended up finding a lady in their place first, and she's attacking Sophie, and Sophie's like, do I know you? And she's like, if you did, I think she was kind of saying, like, you would already be dead if you knew me or something like that. So she managed to bounce, which we later on find out that that's Angelique. We'll get to that in a second. But then Alice admits, like, oh, I won't find my sister. Because at first she's like, what do you want me to say? That I made a mistake? I want her an opportunity for her to forgive me? It's like, no. I want to find Kate so I can kill her. Because I think in her twisted mind, it's like, oh, like, if I kill Kate, I'll finally be rid of everything. I'll get my grand revenge. My grand revenge was taken from me by Sophia. I think she's putting on airs. I think she's trying to pretend like that's... because she doesn't want to accept the fact is that she legitimately is worried about Kate. That the thought of Kate dying, it wasn't just... I mean, who knows? Maybe she is so broken on the inside that she's like, oh, no. Like, I have to be the one to kill my sister. Or maybe it is just simply a thing of, yeah, I do miss her, but I don't want to admit it because it's going to make me feel, because it's like her revenge and hate towards Kate kind of kept her going. So if you twist that around, like her resentment towards Kate and everyone who forgot about her, like if she let go of that resentment, it would basically mean everything she's done up till now has been for nothing, So I think that's why she kind of has to hold on to that hatred. So we'll see kind of where things go on that front. She does kind of like get like a room key, and it's like, well, she's one step to finding Ocean, where she sees a picture of him and it triggers a memory. So it's like, she's like, what was that? So it's like Sophia must have like blocked most of her memories or something from that time, because she was with Sophia, because I took note of it, like for 5 years at the very least is what it seemed like. So I guess maybe as things progress, like maybe she'll remember stuff, like maybe things were so traumatic they were wiped from her memory, or maybe Sophia like plucked those memories out of her head. But it's like because she was like, wait, what? So because at first she didn't realize, like at first the way she was looking at Ocean, it didn't mean anything until she like got that flash of a memory. So maybe there was something between them. Maybe that's even the reason why Sophia wants Alice to kill him, because there was something between them years ago, and it's like, oh. Or maybe even Sophia's hoping they both end up killing each other. We'll see. So, other than that, like I said, brought up, there's the whole Ryan and Angelique thing, which is like, okay, so Angelique is definitely connected to all this, which is going to make this awkward. And I figured it would come to this. It's like, she's going to be up to some criminal stuff, and Ryan, now being the superhero, has got to battle her ex. So, that's not going to be easy. But it's like, neither one is aware of, like, what the others... I mean, granted, maybe whatever Angelique is up to is, like, next level compared to what, like, Ryan knows her from. Because it's like, yeah, it's like, can you be... Maybe it's not like, oh, let's get together again. But maybe it's just like, hey, let's be tight. Let's have each other's back. Yeah, because we don't... It still seems like it's a fresh enough breakup that people are still talking about. Like I said, Victor was bringing it up last episode. So it's like, it still seems like it's fresh enough. Even to the point that he's like, oh, don't do to Angelique what you did to me. Like, the fact is that word on the street is that to the point Victor's like, whoa, you kind of messed her up. It's like, what went down between them? Hopefully we get some answers to that, coming up. But I'm interested to see, I think it's that aspect of, like, she's probably been living on the street, much like Ryan, not really having a place until... probably Ryan kind of having a home that might have, like... change things. Like, they were probably living on the streets, all we had is each other, but till she found a good family, she found the mom that she probably never had to worry about that until, like, obviously this is probably like her first time kind of, well, because she'd been a part of the system, and obviously, like, there's good and bad obviously with the system, so maybe that played a role in it. Obviously there's a lot to their story that I'm really interested to dive into. Like, I've been interested in this Angelique thing ever since. Every time they bring it up, you learn a little bit more. You're like, oh, that's really interesting. I gotta find out what their story is. So it's gonna be interesting, like I said, to see what her part to play in all of this as it does and is, especially as Ryan's going to eventually find out, wait, Angelique, you're a part of this? Like, are you going to take down the person who's supposed to have your back? Because it's like, all that we've been through, like, can I really take down the person who's always had my back? So will she start skirting the line and kind of letting Angelique get away with stuff? Maybe that'll be the case, maybe it won't. Once again, we'll have to wait and see. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.